think because we've got some of this in the investment guide, which we're updating at the moment too, is just probably, I think sometimes a misconception for landlords that they think there are greater maybe financial benefits by going down the Airbnb route, which, I mean, sometimes there can be, depends on the market and the property and the demand, obviously, but there's a lot of potential drawbacks that can come from that as well. First of all, I'd just say be very careful and check with your local council first, because those who dip into the Airbnb route with an investment property could see a really hefty rates rise. Some landlords in the Auckland Council jurisdiction, as an example, saw increases of upwards of 200%. Depends on how many nights you're allowed to have as Airbnb accommodation and all that kind of stuff. But also just the security of tenure. It's probably a choice now where you'll see from some of the stats I'll show later, Greg, there's no shortage of good quality tenants and, you know, really solid rents we're getting, which are continuing to increase. Whether you want the long-term security and stability of that income in this kind of climate, or whether you want to have the unplannable nature of Airbnb income, and also just the risks that happen between every single guest that stays, whether that be damage, meth testing, whatever it might be. You know, that's something you have to consider between each stay, whereas with obviously a long-term tenancy, that only happens between the tenancies. Pros and cons to each, but certainly worth investigating first before you think it's just a good money spinner, basically. First things first would be seek advice before you lodge any case. A lot of landlords, particularly private landlords, will lodge a case with the tribunal. They may not have issued the correct notice. They might not have followed through with the correct process. And with the delays often we have, and we all experience, from lodging a case to getting your hearing, which can be 4 to 8 weeks, depending on where you are. If you get to the hearing and they find out that you haven't done your job properly or ticked the right box, the whole thing's put off and you go right back to the starting block. So before you lodge, talk to one of our property managers. They're there to give you some consultation and advice, whether you're one of their landlords or not. They'll help you out and point you in the right direction. But basically just making sure your notices are served correctly, really clear notes and evidence. The best way I view it is if you had a random person come off the street and they could look at your paperwork and completely understand what went wrong, what happened, and what you did about it. I mean, there's all manner of reasons to give notice, but effectively there's two key ones. There's probably the most common we'll see will be the 63 days written notice, which is where the owner or a family member is looking to move into the property. And that can be given for both a periodic tenancy or a fixed term tenancy, as long as that original fixed term still gets to run through. The one that you're probably seeing, Greg, term where we're having the most issues with landlords misinterpreting, and some salespeople as well, is the 90-day notice when you sell a property. So now moving forward, for every single landlord in New Zealand, whether you manage it yourself or not, you either have two options. You put the property on the market and you sell it, and you give 90 days notice only once the sale has gone unconditional. That's option A. Or your only other option, option B, is you give 90 days notice to the tenant to put the property on the market for sale empty. That does mean, though, that you cannot put them online, you can't have open homes. If you give that 90 days notice beforehand, you have to wait until the tenant has left before you even start marketing it for sale. But yeah, lots of different kind of hooks and loops in there. We've got plenty of information if anyone has more questions.